Welcome to Mike Text It Out. We are doing a sensational Sunday live. I'm Mike, of course, and in this video, we talk about the gaming news, but never, ever, without doing the intro first. So let's do it. All right, it's Sunday, so let's get sensational. And yeah, this is the first time I'm doing this live, so it's gonna be a little bit weird. But there's a good reason I'm doing this live, and that's because I got sick yesterday and I didn't record the video. So it was a self-imposed sickness. Like, I went to a birthday party where I didn't drink that much, and then I went home and I drank, and then I got sick because of that. So like, I was responsible by not drinking at the party, but then irresponsible when I got home, and then like I was hungover for half the day. And then after like the age of 30, when you get hungover, it's bad. Like, you just don't, like, you lose half the day, and that's basically what happened. So I didn't get to record yesterday because I was at the party, and then after the party, I decided to party more, and I was like, I'll get up in the morning and record it, because I do that sometimes. Sometimes I'll record the video in the morning and then edit it, and then it didn't work out today. So that's why we're doing this live. But of course, we got plenty of stories to talk about. Of course, there's the title story about the PS5 Pro. We got some new rumors, and then but you know what we do here? We gotta backtrack and talk about some other stories first before we get to that one. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the iPhone, because you know the iPhone does games. People are surprised to find out, but it's true. I find it to be true that the iPhone does games, but for the longest time they hadn't done emulators. They were not allowed on the App Store, at least in any official capacity. Now, if you were to jailbreak your iPhone, which I did back in the day with the original iPhone, you could get emulators on there. But yeah, that's like unofficial, so it's not like if you had emulators up there, it was like, you know what I mean. You had to hack your phone. But they recently changed their App Store policies. We talked about this a few weeks ago, to allow emulators in the App Store. But the language around it was really weird. It was kind of like, it seemed like it was implying that you had to own the games that were going to be a part of the package. It wasn't exactly clear. So when the news came out, I was like, they say that they're allowing emulators, but it may not be what we think it is. So I was cautiously optimistic. But now we have our first official emulator on the App Store. So that is Delta. Let me pull up this story really quick. Thank you, Engadget, for reporting this. So yes, the Nintendo emulator Delta hits the iOS App Store. No side loading required. So the one thing I didn't know about when I reported on it as well is if they allow these emulators, if they're going to allow access to the file system, and they 100% have. So I'm not going to say that I downloaded this, but I did download this, and I've played a little bit of N64 up here. Of course, I had to load up No Mercy. If you're a wrestling fan, that's one of the best wrestling games. So I played No Mercy already on my iPhone. And yeah, it was pretty good. So the way this works is touchscreen controls, you can see in the picture, but you can also hook up a controller. So like, I have a Razer Kishi. I'm probably going to try that. I'm actually traveling tomorrow, so this was like the best time for me to get this, so that way I can, test it on my travels, because I'm going to have the ROG Ally with me, and the battery life on it is trash. So having this as a backup, it gives me something else to do if I get bored on the flight. But yeah, so the touchscreen controls, and it has the controller support. So this does GBA, it does regular Game Boy, it does DS, N64, NES, and SNES. And the developer is claiming that they're going to add more stuff later. So it does a fair bit. And yeah, you can just point to the file system on the iPhone and just load apps directly. I actually played the N64 ROM directly off my server. I didn't even load it on the phone. I just navigated to my server in the Files app and then loaded the ROM off of there. So it seems like for now, Apple is being pretty lenient and allowing the developers to have access to the file system, which I am a little bit surprised about. But the one thing that I'm not sure about is if they're going to have issues in the future. Like Delta specifically, they're emulating a lot of Nintendo stuff. And Nintendo has been known to go after emulators. We talked about the Yuzu shutdown. Well, not even shut. They folded. They folded quick. As soon as Nintendo was like lawsuit, they folded. But we talked about the Yuzu situation. There's a lot of other stuff going on there, I think, from what I heard. But I couldn't find any good sources on it. But there were rumors that everything wasn't on the up and up behind the scenes. But yeah, I wonder if if there's a world when Nintendo goes after Apple. I think most likely scenarios they probably go after the developer. But I could see if there's like a lot of emulators on the App Store that they could potentially go after Apple, especially because they're the biggest phone or the most popular phone manufacturer in the U.S. and kind of be like, hey, you need to stop these emulators. And I wonder how Apple will respond to that. So we have the emulators for now, but I'm not saying that they could potentially, be there forever. We'll see what happens with that. And of course, not everything in the news is good news. So we're going to go ahead and talk about Take Two. So there's been the trend of layoffs recently that we've seen across the gaming industry, and they're down revenue wise. So that's why a lot of this stuff is happening. They basically none of the companies are getting the revenue that they expected at this point. A lot of it was due to all the shutdown and all that crap, and then the whole thing that happened. Revenue was up during the shutdown, and I think a lot of companies forecasted to be getting like similar money after everything opened back up, and that didn't happen. So now they're like, we're not making as much money as we planned to, and now we got to do layoffs. So yeah, Take Two is doing a layoff. So the interesting thing about this story is the IGN story, as they point out, is Take Two CEO has said that they weren't going to do layoffs. That they had basically like, oh, we had the right size teams and blah blah blah, and then of course now they're turning around doing layoffs. So they're laying off 5% of their workforce, which is 579 workers according to this IGN article, and yeah, they also mentioned that they bought Zynga, which is a mobile developer, and I guess that didn't go well. They bought them back in 2022, and they said apparently it's being quoted that it was expensive and late, like they entered the mobile market too late. So that could be part of why this is happening. They also said that they're canceling several projects in development. I don't know if those are mobile games or what, but Take Two is pretty large. I should have probably prefaced this by saying who Take Two is if you're not familiar. So Take Two is they own Rockstar, so obviously like the Grand Theft Auto series and Red Dead, but they also have 2K that does the 2K sports games and all the 2K like stuff. They have a bunch of studios. They just recently acquired Gearbox. We talked about that a few weeks ago because they were part of the Embracer Group, and the Embracer Group basically it's chaotic. So they're like shutting down a bunch of studios and selling off some studios because they didn't get some money that they were expecting to get, and everything went to chaos. So they just bought Gearbox too. So it's not great. Like Take Two just got them and they put them under 2K. So yeah, it's not great that they have to do layoffs. Like on one hand, it's like, oh, it's only 5% of the workforce, but that's still like almost 600 people. That's a lot of people going into an industry that is definitely not hiring right now. Everyone's doing layoffs, so like they're being released back into the market to find another job, but like nobody's hiring. So it really sucks. So it's the worst on the workers out of all of this stuff. So, but unfortunately, it probably won't be the last time we talk about layoffs because they seem to be continuing to happen. All right, now we can start to get to the PlayStation news. So we're not gonna talk about the PS5 Pro yet, though. All right, so Sony recently said that they want to be more aggressive to bring their games to other platforms, and by other platforms they just mean PC because they're not bringing their games to Xbox or the Switch. They mean PC. Except for they do make the MLB game, but that's like a weird thing where it's on Switch and Xbox. Not weird, but basically MLB was like, hey, if you want to keep this license, you got to bring the game to every platform, and they were like, okay. But other than that, they only release games on PC, other than the PS5. So they're finally. Why can't I talk today? they're finally bringing trophies to PC, kind of. So this is starting with Ghost of Tsushima, but they have a new overlay that you can view your trophies. Let me see. We can zoom in on this a little bit. But they have a new overlay for trophies that you can bring up by pressing Shift F1. Like I said, this is only in Ghost of Tsushima right now, and there's no word if they're gonna bring this to any other game, like their older games, like obviously like God of War Ragnarok and I almost said Tomb Raider. That's so disrespectful. Horizon, the Horizon series. But yeah, there's no word if they're gonna bring this to other games. But yeah, you press Shift F1 and it brings up this menu, so you can get trophies, at least in Ghost of Tsushima on PC. You can also access your friends list and settings in your profile from your PlayStation account. So this is the first game to get it, but this is probably tied into their more aggressive approach to PC that they mention, or other platforms that they mention is PC. Um, but yeah, I want someone personally who has a PS5 again. I still haven't talked about that. I've been behind on videos recently, but the thing I want are cross saves. So it's good that they have trophies, but I think they just need to have cross saves. Like, I could understand it's probably going to be like a PlayStation Plus exclusive feature, but they need the cross saves. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, if you buy a game on PC, you can't bring your save over, or vice versa. Like, sometimes I might want to pick up where I left off on PC, and I can't. There's no way to do that. So the trophies is a nice start, but I'm really hoping that they expand on this, bring it to their older games, and they add in cross saves. All right. Now we can talk about this PS5 Pro and our final story. It doesn't work as well without the cut. I don't think that worked as well without the cut. The final story thing, like, okay. But yeah, so we've had a lot of rumors coming out about this PS5 Pro, and basically it's more likely coming this year. The rumors we have now are like stuff that's going to developers about, what their requirements are for the games. But if you're not familiar with PS5 Pro, it's going to be a slightly more powerful PS5. It's going to have PSSR, which I just learned about with this article, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution. That's what they're calling their upscaling technology. It's similar to NVIDIA's DLSS, and that's how they're planning to get like bigger boost or better performance out of these games. It's going to be slightly more powerful, but then they're going to have upscaling on top of that. Then they also are going to have actually no, that's it. That's like that's pretty much it. It's just going to be a more powerful PlayStation. But the reason we're talking about it today is because some new rumors came out about what is going to be required to have the PlayStation 5 Pro Enhanced badge on your game. So let's go ahead and pull that up. So this is, they did this with the PS4 Pro. I actually had to look this up because I really didn't buy that many physical games last generation, but they had, like, on the back of the box, they had a PS4 Pro Enhanced stamp that, if they did things to the game to make it better on the PS4 Pro, then they had the stamp. But basically what's rumored to have gone out to developers is what are the requirements to get that badge on your game, the PS5 Pro Enhanced. So this article points out that they have this new Ultra Boost, which is another term that I hadn't heard before. They're just dropping these terms out of nowhere. They got the Ultra Boost, they got PSSR. Sony is just working it right now. They're working it with the new terms. But it's going to have Ultra Boost, which means that a lot of games will automatically run better on the PS5 Pro. But that's not enough to get the Enhanced Pro badge. So they actually have to do something to get this badge. And so it has to be one or more of these four things, basically. So it has to be a game that has completely new PS5 Pro graphics mode that supports PSSR, 4K upscaling, and ray tracing at 60 frames per second. A game that has a higher fixed resolution cap at 30 frames per second. So, for example, if it goes up from like 1440p to 4K. A game that has a higher maximum target resolution. Example between 1280p and 2160p and the original game was like 1080p and 1440p on the original PS5, or if they add ray tracing to the game. So if the game didn't have ray tracing before and they add it for the PS5 Pro version, that's another thing that will basically be a qualifier for it. So this basically sounds the same as what they did for the PS4 Pro, for better or worse. Yeah, and side note, when I did the last video about the PS5 Pro when the specs first leaked, that video was a mess. Well, the video itself wasn't a mess, but when the specs first leaked, they were like, "Oh, this performance is gonna be way bigger." And I was like, "This doesn't make any sense. These numbers don't make any sense," because I was like, "This is too big of a leap." And then the next week we got further clarification, and I covered that about it's like I think it's 1.6 times more powerful, something like that, than the regular PS5. And I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. But the one thing that I did get a lot of comments on that video, and a lot of people just didn't seem like they were really like that excited about the PS5 Pro. I mean, I'm not. I'm perfectly fine with the PS5, and I mentioned this several times before. I was like, the Series X and the PS5 don't feel underpowered right now. Like, sure, they could run ray tracing effects at 60 with a more powerful system and upscaling, but I don't think that realistically it makes enough of a difference for people to want to buy another system. Plus, Sony have been pretty like fixed on their prices. They actually raised their prices in other territories, so they basically, both them and Microsoft, have said that they're not going to drop prices. So if they're not going to drop prices, then what is this going to come in at? Like $600-700? That's a lot for something that's probably not going to be that big of an upgrade overall. Like, I'm sure it'll be better, but like, I don't think anyone's clamoring for it. The thing that I saw the most that people said they wanted, like in the comments of that video, were that they wanted more games, which makes sense. Like, everything's been on the low right now because of game development was affected during the shutdown. That was one of the things that they're still bouncing back from, like everyone is. So yeah, and there's just not a lot of, like, Sony's going through a dry period right now. The Switch is too, but that's more intentional because it's like the end of the life cycle for the Switch. And then Xbox has been on a dry period since the 360. So, that was rude. I'm sorry. But yeah, a lot of the things that I saw people saying was like they just want more games, like they don't care about the Pro. So we'll see how this thing sells, and we'll see how much it costs because, like I said, if it's $700 or something like that, that might be like in a PSVR 2 situation. Like I said before that came out, I was like, it's a great headset, but it's too expensive for a PS5 accessory. It costs more than the PS5. So they priced that at $550. So I could see them doing $600 or $700 for a PS5 Pro. Like, they have got the prices up there before for a headset. Yeah, but it's probably also the reason that they're trying to get PC support added to that headset before the end of this year, because they're not selling any. But yeah, I could see the PS5 Pro kind of being in the same boat. And I do agree with the sentiment that the games are kind of in the low right now, and releasing this doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, I felt like at the end of the PS4, or towards the end of the PS4 generation, there were performance issues with the base PS4 and the base Xbox, so it made sense for them to do those upgraded systems. Now it doesn't feel like it makes as much sense, but that's just my opinion. But let me know what you think in the comments. How do you feel about the PS5 Pro altogether? Do you even think that it'll come out this year? I'm just kind of curious to get more feedback about it, because generally everyone that commented seemed pretty negative. So I am actually curious about it. But that's going to wrap things up for today. I'm going to put timestamps in this video eventually, so that way people can jump around and, go to the stories they want to, like my normal videos. But it has been real. I'm going to hit this outro button. I forgot how much time it gives me. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video or this live stream especially, then subscribe so that way you get notified when I drop a live stream, even though I just scheduled this like an hour before I went live. So my bad. I should have gave y'all more time. But and I always do at least 2 things at the same time. I'm hitting the outro button. I forgot what happens. I'm going to bed or something. I'm actually not. I got to go do my hair and get ready for this trip tomorrow. But peace.